What's good, everybody? Give me 1 second. Yeah, bro. What's good, everybody? This your boy D Money. We on another day in the life of a designer. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Make sure that you tap in, share with your friends and family, so that way they can catch the gems that we drop in here at Dreams of Rulers Street Fashion. What we're gonna be talking about tonight is when taste becomes your business. You feel me? And this should be a fun joint, but also educational as well too. That way, you guys can understand our previous episode, why taste, matters, especially when it comes down to, fashion design and, you know, understanding that taste isn't just for, something expensive, but more so something that, exhibits a set amount of standards. So let's get right into it. You know what I'm saying? We typically have a core question that we open up with. All the day ones are familiar with. But here's the question for the topic tonight, and that is, when does a designer personal taste stop being personal and become the commercial identity of a fashion house? This is a deeper version of why taste, matters. The focus isn't simply on having good taste. It's about turning judgment into economic value. You feel me? Taste isn't preference. Everybody has taste, but not everybody, has a point of view. And that's the difference. The difference is, I like versus, this belongs in my world and that doesn't matter. You feel me? Taste becomes useful when it gives you the ability to make decisions consistently. You feel me? What attracts you visually, what immediately feels wrong to you. These are, two pillars of what taste can be for you. You feel me? What you consider over design, what you consider underdeveloped, what makes something feel, elevated, what makes something feel cheap, even when it's expensive. Your taste should eventually become recognizable without your logo. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do here with every piece, garment, collection that we drop here at Dreams of Rulers. We want, our piece to be recognizable without the logo. Taste isn't known. Well, taste is known what doesn't belong. This is, one of the most important ideas. Design isn't only about adding. It's about, rejecting, the power of restraint. We've also had that episode as well too. A designer might have, 20 ideas. What's good, Dylan? Appreciate you for tapping in on the live. But, a designer might have 20 ideas. A creative director, has to determine which 3 deserve to survive. Think about that. 20 ideas, but only 3 of them. Good, Martin. Appreciate you for tapping in. Make sure that y'all like the live, subscribe, comment any, thoughts, questions about the topic, and, keep visualizing and stay tapped in. But, another question is, what are you willing to leave out of your brand? As far as, with Dreams of Rulers, we want everything that is negative to be left out. You feel me? All that negativity as far as I can't, I won't, I'm not sure if I can, doubt words, fears, all that shit. We don't want, we We don't want none of that shit in our pieces, our collections, our messaging, because ultimately, if, we pushing out positivity, how we gonna tell you can't do something? You feel me? We gotta be pushing your ideas as well as our own. You feel me? A brand becoming recognizable through both, what it does and what it refuses to do. That's the main thing. You feel me? Every, unnecessary design decision costs money, time, production, resources, and attention. Brand clarity as well, too. You feel me? What's good, Dance Mom fan? Appreciate y'all for all y'all tapping in. Appreciate you, Dylan. Shoot, man. I'm just nobody trying to be somebody, bro. That's all it really come down to. You feel me? We all can do the same thing. We all got the same capability. All you gotta do is just keep grinding. You feel me? That's all it really come down to with this shit. Attention is the new currency. You feel me? But ultimately, you know what I'm saying? Your brand has gotta have clarity. And I hope you have a, good day as well too, Dance Mom. Hope all y'all, continue to keep visualizing, start moving with intent. But, taste becomes a business advantage because good judgment reduces waste. Developing judgment comes with understanding taste isn't something you simply, declare or, you call it, yeah, that shit, so, got class, got taste. Feel me? Nah, you study it. Study fashion, architecture, art, music, photography, film, typography, culture, history. You feel me? You begin recognizing, patterns after, you compare them. You feel me? Like the designer's progression is exposure, observation, comparison, judgment, and then point of view. That's how taste becomes expertise. You feel me? Recognizing quality, separates taste from quality. Something, can be your taste, but still have poor execution or just be poorly put together. You feel me? This is where you gotta ask yourself, is the proportions right? Is the construction right? Is the material appropriate? Does the garment hold its shape? Is the typography intentional? You feel me? Does the finish support the concept? Does the execution match the ambition? Damn. Street luxury connection, you feel me? This is where dreams of rulers philosophy becomes practical. Street influence gives you the perspective. Luxury standards demand that you execute that perspective seriously. And that's ultimately how we move. That's why I said we move with intent. We move with purpose. You feel me? Because that's ultimately what our philosophy tells us to do. You feel me? We're just a living example of the philosophy. That's why you start to see the taste come out in the clothes, the swag, the sauce. Knowing when it's finished, you feel me, is the hardest skill in design. This goes back to our episode, The Power of Restraint. You feel me? If you don't understand, how to say no with your designs, you're never gonna have that, iconic piece because less is actually more. You feel me? The question you gotta automatically ask yourself is, am I improving the design or just changing it because I'm afraid to finish? Knowing when to stop, that connects, to restraint. A designer needs enough, confidence to say no. You feel me? It's done. That's how you gotta respond to those moments. When taste, becomes brand language, this is a transition from the designer to the brand. If your decision becomes constant enough, people begin to recognize patterns, silhouettes, typography, proportion, materials, styling, photography, presentation. Eventually someone sees something and says, that looks like Dreams of Rulers, even without seeing the name or the logo. That's when, personal taste starts becoming brand equity. Yeah, I swear the universe definitely is coming after a nigga right now. Everything I try to do positive, negativity keep popping up. Like this was 5 blocks, like not even 5 blocks away, literally a half a block away, and let that joint ring. Like, come on, bro. When taste becomes commercial value, feel me? This is a business question. You feel me? Does someone's taste have monetary value? And distinct judgment creates differentiation. If your taste is interchangeable with, everyone else's, you can compete on a price. If your taste becomes recognizable, you compete on identity. And then if people specifically want your interpretation, your judgment becomes something they are willing to pay for. That's kind of like what fashion is. Niggas is willing to pay for your personal taste, your consistent judgment, your distinct design language, brand recognition, cultural identity, and commercial value. The goal isn't for everybody to have my taste. The goal is for Dreams of Rulers to have such a clear point of view, you feel me, that can be recognized not only when you see it, but when you feel it. That's when taste stops being something personal, starts becoming more than a business, becomes something iconic, legendary. You know what I'm saying? The final question I want y'all to ask yourselves is, what would, Dreams of Rulers look like if I removed the logo and left nothing behind except my taste? It's just that simple. It'll look like the same thing, just without the logo, you feel me? It will look like, swag. It look like street culture. It'll look like, positive vibes, but also the pain, the pressure, and the struggles as well, too. You feel me? Dreams of Rulers is a brand that embodies the different forms of growing seasons. We all have different forms of growing seasons, and we all, come from different places, different environments, you feel me? And different, struggles, pains, and pressures. But we all got a story, we all got a voice, and we all can let it be heard. We can all help each other out. We can all help each other eventually reach each other's purpose. And that's why I tell you guys, y'all, to visualize your purpose. Because once you start visualizing your purpose, other people will start visualizing their purpose too. And then once other people start visualizing their purpose, it just makes the best of the journey for all of us. Because then we done all created more opportunity for each other, not just for ourselves. See, when everybody start moving on a positive, mindset, then the whole world changes. So start designing with impact, start designing with meaning, and start understanding what your taste is. You feel me? We all got, a distinct taste, how, we see things, how we see it fit. And, honestly, it all just comes down to you exploring the world, understanding, different things that exist, actually, experiencing different things that exist. So that way, when you do your art and other things of that sort, you can actually implement it and put it in. So, like I always say, visualize your purpose. All you gotta do is put together a plan, do the research, execute that motherfucker, and your dreams and goals come to fruition. So keep visualizing. I'm out.